Today, I get to reconnect with an old friend of mine about his latest film, Lolita, that's coming to the San Antonio Film Festival on July 21st. Jorge Xolalpa, and along with him is Alexis Vazquez, who plays Jesús, the lead in the film. Gentlemen, it is great seeing you.
Likewise, and just real quick, it's
Yeah.
Xolalpa.
Xolalpa, I'm so sorry. You know
Yes,
how hard it is for me to
yes.
pronounce, dude, you should see with my own Middle Eastern names, I screw up all the time. So,
No worries at all. Are you in San Antonio, by the way? Are you stationed in San Antonio?
no, I'm in Orange County, but,
Oh,
I've covered San Antonio all this time.
okay.
So,
I was gonna say, how's the weather out there?
yeah,
Okay.
we'll find out together in a couple of
Yes,
weeks.
Thank you for
yes, yes.
having us.
Yeah, no, and you pronounce it Vasquez or Vasquez?
Vasquez.
Vasquez, because when I announce, some people want Vasquez, some people want Vasquez, so we got to
Yeah.
make sure. You
Yes.
know, Jorge, you were telling me just a bit pre-interview that you had initially written Lolita for yourself in 2018.
Yes, I wrote it in 2018 with along with a couple other scripts that have male protagonists in them, and Lolita was supposed to be the film that I wanted to star in. I wanted it to be my first film. But in the process, I mean, the script kind of went through several people, like several tables, like people just to see who would eventually would be part of the film. And I think part of it that I didn't do it myself was because of fear. I still have that fear. I still haven't taken that chance. I'm slowly gonna get there one eventually. But yes, I wrote it for me.
And then Alexis here has stolen your own role from you.
Yes, he did.
This is a heavy film to watch, so we got to make a little light in the interview because when
No,
you get to see this is not going to be, a PG comedy.
1,000%.
It's not. And then also we have to clarify because a lot of people think it's based on that Russian novel
Mhm.
Lolita, which is not. This film is completely different. This film is about redemption. This film is about a man who, I mean, I won't give it away, but basically redemption and the antagonist being the system.
Right. And we'll put it this way, he's trying to reconnect with his daughter.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. The interesting thing with drug addiction and people that have been in the system and let out, the one thing that they do, and this is what people don't really recognize when it comes to either falling back into addiction, like Jesus's character, like Jesus, or people that get back into gangbanging or whatever else, is that you're released and then you go straight back to the community that put you in prison in the first place. It's not like they
Yes.
send you to a completely different town and go, hey, start your life over. You end up exactly where you started from.
Well, you really don't know anything else.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you kind of see hints at the beginning of the film. Like one thing that I didn't want to write it on the script, but one thing you should never do with addicts is give him cash, and how the brother doesn't care. So he gives him cash, almost hoping that he'll fall back into his old habits.
Right.
And the fact that he ends up in a motel and and all these this environment that he desires to not be part of anymore. It's quite interesting because again, it all comes down to the system being the antagonist here.
Right.
The system and treating you how they see you.
Right. And Ricardo doesn't help Jesus in the least. As you said, he gives him some money, sends him on his way, and is like, go
Good
back to
luck.
that life that you have because we're taking care of your daughter for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That plays an interesting role, especially with siblings, in the fact that, he loved him for so long and felt so betrayed by Jesus for so long that even Jesus really trying to make that effort, Ricardo felt like he's been lied to so much that he still can't trust
Yeah.
his own brother.
Right.
Yeah. And
He's almost like, you're gonna go back to what you know. So like cut the BS and, leave us alone.
Right.
it's also coming from a place of being a little bit selfish. He wanted to keep the daughter,
Right.
Lolita. And I think a lot of it too is infused by the wife,
Mhm.
who's, I mean, her presence is there, but we can tell that he follows whatever she wants, whatever she says. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
'Cause I know a lot of people that are in that situation too, where the wife leads. So yeah, he's not going to have much success with that. Alexis, when you got the script and you're sitting there and you're working with Jorge on this film, what was it like first getting the script, reading through it, and then going to the audition process? Because this isn't a very easy character to play.
It wasn't. But I was up for the challenge. But my first instinct was ask Jorge. I was like, what have you gone through? Like, it was so deep and so bizarre. I got concerned. But he was like, no, I just, I created something, I did my research and I wrote it. Um, but I had auditioned for another film prior, which I didn't fit the role for. And he was like, I have something for you. Like, you have this thing, read the script, let me know how you feel about it. And I fell in love with it.
Yeah. And then here you are acting against legendary actor Eric Roberts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was still pinch me, like wake me up type situation. I worked with him 2 days and I learned so much, so much from that guy. It was just an awe. Like, yeah, a dream come true.
The great thing about Eric is you forget, oh wait, Eric has won an Oscar. Oh wait, Eric has done all this great stuff. And then when you sit there and just talk to him, it's like you're having coffee with an old friend that you haven't seen in 10 years, even if you just met him 20 minutes ago.
Legit, he's
Yeah.
so professional. Like, he's so good at what he does. But then off camera, he's just like so cash,
Yeah.
He's like, hey, so tell me about yourself. Da da da. He sits back, he makes you relax.
Yeah.
Even when we were shooting and Jorge had to call action, he just made me feel at ease. But I also knew who I was sitting across, and I knew I had to like pull up and deliver. So I didn't take it lightly at all. It was, an honor.
No, it's fantastic. And you held your own with Eric Roberts. That's why I have to mention Eric in your performance.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. There's also other situations we're not going to get into, but it really could have easily put Jorge back into the dark places and sent him spiraling, especially, certain perceptions in job interviews and, certain behaviors of people towards him knowing his past. How conscious were you two in filming this to make sure that he's one step away from falling all the way back into addiction, yet we're trying to make sure that he doesn't get there, especially, the way the film is unfolding. Because there's always that tension of will he, won't he fall back into that world?
I think it was all about trusting the character and trusting that myself as the writer. Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't know why this is beeping so much. I think it's all about trusting the character and trusting that he's being tested in all kinds of ways and forms. And at the end of the day, like he just wants to be loved. He just wants to be accepted. And I know when we talked about the script, because we didn't have a lot of time to actually develop everything. I mean, well, I had more time than I usually do, but we started pre-production in December and then actually November, and then we got married in December, and then we jumped into the film in January. And which we went straight for 10 days, and every single day we were discovering something new about making sure that he didn't come off as somebody who didn't care. Because you're right. I mean, this could have gone completely wrong. This could have been some kind of what's that word that I'm looking for? It'll come to me, but it could have been completely different. It could have been a completely different performance as opposed to taking it seriously from where he actually comes from, and part of the voguing and the dancing that you see at the beginning and throughout the film, that's something that we incorporated as we were shooting because he's a dancer, he's a professional dancer. And I said, how do we add something that will humanize him and actually show that he has an aspiration to become someone other than what people see him as a drug addict or as a sex worker.
Right. And it could also be interpreted as his descent into madness and he's fighting the cravings and the urges. So there's so many different
Yeah.
layers just in the dance scenes themselves.
Yeah,
Right.
even in the way that we framed everything, that opening number, not the number, but the opening scene, I wanted it to be a little longer eventually, but my producers and everybody fought me on it. We kept it at where it is, but I wanted it to be one of those scenes where like this is who he is, and he gets lost because there were so many shots that we did in that specific scene where you can see, and I'll say this because it's not in the film anymore, but you could see the devil and then his mom and then him as a little kid. And then it just came down to just showing what we did in the movie kind of deciphers that at the end, that he's still having those visions.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, once you've been that addicted to drugs, it's not going to be something that's a 24-hour turnaround and quit cold turkey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also 9 years is a lot of years, which is why we also I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of things that he didn't really understand because, you know, a lot of things have happened in 9 years. You know, TikTok didn't exist 9 years ago. You know, Twitter was an X, or I mean, I can think of so many things like just the iPhone. There's been like 10 new iPhones in the last 9 years. So there was a lot of things that we wanted to just make sure that it hit the mark in terms of him feeling like he's in a different world, and that's why he's always carrying this little paper, like, and writing down the addresses of where he's going, which people don't do that anymore, you know. But we wanted to make sure that it felt real to someone that had been in jail for 9 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
I feel
9 years today is a lifetime.
it
Yeah.
is. And coming out, I feel like he was brought into like a whole new world.
You
Where still didn't have a phone. Yeah, and like the voguing was his comfort zone, was his home, you know, rather than drugs and addiction.
Yeah.
He had something to fall back on, I guess you can say. Like he said, something to aspire to. But I feel like you see how Jesus approaches each individual with almost optimism. Yeah.
Yes.
And hope. And then, you know, there's like little glimpses of a smirk maybe here and there, but then there's the heaviness of reality.
Yeah.
And also, it's hard for him because he's trying to find happiness, but there's been so much destruction in his life that's been taken away from him since he was 18 years old, that where do you find the happiness in this little ray of hope that you have? And especially when your
Right.
brother can't even share that with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if there's any happiness left in general, you know,
Yeah.
because again, I did a lot of research when I wrote the film, and one thing that I wanted to just make sure I concentrated on was how does somebody integrate themselves back into society after being in jail for more than 5 years. And I felt a lot of stories. Some people integrated real quick because they had family that supported them to come back. Some of them didn't really integrate at all, and they fall back into drugs and addiction and sex work. And then there's the other group of people like Jesús that, you know, it's like a limbo. They're not fully integrated, but they're in the process of integrating themselves. But it's kind of a journey because they have to fight all these systems to prove to them that they are ready to get back to, you know, to regular life, which sucks because the percentage of people not making it through is higher than the percentage of people that actually stay and get to live a happy life. They end up going back to jail. Like he says, you know, in one of the monologues, he says, I'd rather go back than stay here for reasons. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to make sure that we had that clear when I wrote the script.
And you pulled it off, and I'm thrilled for you with that, and especially with this coming to San Antonio, because, you know, the only real spoiler I'm going to give is that Jesus, you know, comes from New York, ends up in Long Beach, and now the film is having its a Texas premiere. It's interesting to see how we're just going back and forth across the United States with these characters that is
Yeah.
really very international in its you know, introspective of one particular character and situation.
And it's quite exciting because I love San Antonio. I've had a film there in 2017 or 18 maybe, Valentina. And ever since then, I've made a film every year, as you know, and I've submitted, and it's always been like, you know, it's not your year again, it's not your year. So I'm happy to be back. It's been 7 years since I've been to San Antonio Film Festival. And with Lolita, we're also going to Madrid, and we're going to Georgia, and we're going to Utah. So we have all these new festivals that I need to announce soon, but it's gearing up to do its rounds, which I'm really excited about. It definitely, and I mean this very humbly, it's definitely my best work to date. Like I took a break after Melancholia, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to deliver something. I was at a point in my life where we had just met and we were living together, and I had kept mentioning that I didn't want to make movies anymore, just because I felt so misunderstood. And meeting Alfredo Whitman, my producer, I have this joke that's actually not a joke, but it's real, that he's one of the only men in Hollywood that's made me all these promises and kept them, because, you know, he came to my house, we met, and he said, I want to make a movie. What do you have? I gave him several scripts. He picked Lolita. I said, let's make Lolita. And I said to him, sure, yes, we're gonna make it, sure, whatever, because people always say they're gonna get financing. And within a week, he had all the money. He had raised all the money. He had financiers locked. And I was like, great. I was like, I guess we're doing this. You know, and I remember thinking maybe not, and he mentioning to me saying, you know, a lot of people come to Hollywood to do what you're doing. And, for you to turn down an opportunity, it's such a privilege that, a lot of people wish they had. So, and even then, my first week, I'll tell you, like, not to get off tangent, but my first week, the first couple of days I was so disconnected with what we were doing. I had trouble connecting with the film. And it wasn't maybe until like day number 4 where I was like up to speed and I was like, okay, but it was very difficult for me just because I had lost a friend and I had no idea about like if I was gonna make movies anymore, and coming from Melancholia, thinking that it was gonna be this huge success, and it just became this film about school shootings. There was a lot that was happening in my mind, and I'm glad that I was able to clear all that up with Lolita because it is my best work to date.
Right.
And going back to hitting across country, I feel like it's just relatable. Like regardless, you don't have to be a drug abuser, you don't have to be in jail for 10 years. I think everybody at some point in life has been, hopeful for a second chance in anything, and if you're not, good for you. But I feel like where I pulled Jesus from was very relatable to me, and I wanted to get that across.
No, and you did an excellent job with that because, he's a very flawed character, but his
Yeah,
seeking of redemption is extremely powerful because there are people that don't want to seek that, put their past behind them. There are some people that just want to run back to the situation that they were in prior, and Jesus is doing his best to fight for getting away from it.
right.
The other thing I wanted to mention real quick was that the initial inspiration for this film has nothing to do with the subject matter. As many people know, I'm a DACA recipient, and I've always talked about how I feel like I'm stuck in the limbo between not being able to not being able to travel to my country of Mexico, or being able to be a citizen of this country. And I wanted to make something where someone felt free held. And when I say free held, I don't mean the terminology of real estate. I mean like being free, but also being held back. But I didn't want to make a film about immigration. So when I discovered that I could make a film about somebody who'd been in jail and wanted to find redemption and find a new life, the metaphor for me being a DACA recipient came into this story of how he wants to get his daughter back and fall back into society, but society looks at him like a third-class citizen in a way. And that's where the inspiration came from, which I don't think a lot of people know, because it absolutely doesn't tell you that at all. The film doesn't tell you that. But that's how I feel, that I'm constantly have to prove myself to society, to American citizens or people on the far right, or etc., to let them know that I'm more than just a document. I'm a filmmaker, I'm a dreamer, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a sibling, and I create art because that's what comes to me. And that's what I wanted. That was the original inspiration of making Lolita, which again, I think a lot of people are gonna be like, what?
Right.
Because it has nothing to do with it, but in a way, it's almost like I'm stuck in jail myself
Right.
because I have no immigration status.
Yeah, the term I've always used for something similar to that is golden handcuffs.
There you go.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
So it's interesting to see where the inspiration came from and where it took you
Mhm.
in a creative standpoint. It wasn't like you're not making a political statement with the film. You're just telling a story, and then now you could see how it ties into a real life situation that's completely departed from
Yeah.
where you took us, and that's even more inspiring for creatives to see that a real life situation can take you in a direction that has nothing to do with what the inspiration was.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful part about being an independent artist, or an artist in general, because you can take something and turn it into something else.
Right. Was it how important was it to have the relationship between, Jesus and his brother Ricardo, and showing that dichotomy, because there are those people that have shunned their relatives trying to get back into society because, we gave you 250 chances and I'm
Yeah.
not ready to give you 251.
I mean, I think that in life, if one thing we've learned, and I'll speak for myself, is that we found our greatest enemies in our family. I think that, and eventually you heal those and you make amends with those relationships. But it was important for me to show that because it happens. I've been in those situations, and not in terms of drugs or sex work, but in terms of other things with my family where they haven't approved of certain of my choices, and it becomes an argument or a fight that you always have to face in life. And at the end of the day, you still go back to them because it's your family. You can't choose your family. You really can't choose who you're going to be born into, who you're going to be, who's going to be part of your family. So it was important for me to show that, particularly the relationship between Jolene and Ricardo. Excuse me, because Jolene is the instigator. Jolene is the one that's kind of picking and poking at him, every single time he gets. So it was important because again, that happens all the time.
Yeah. And it's beautifully portrayed in this film. You had 10 days to make this movie. You said, you finally got your financing, which Hollywood is full of empty promises, and it's full of money that's spent on productions that never get made. And like, if people understood how much money was spent on things that never come to fruition, like, we would have fixed the American deficit 8 times over.
Yeah.
And that's just in the last 50 years of how much money has been spent. Like, when you get to see that from the creative side, and I saw how disheartened you were in that, promises are made and constantly broken, and then you see someone, get a deal and sell a script for X amount of dollars that never gets made. I can see why you were disheartened. How were you able, because you took time off, and like you said, your heart wasn't in it in the very beginning. What refueled the creativity and allowed you to forge forward with this, especially when you were that depleted?
I think talking to my mom, I always talk about how I have a really close relationship with her. And of course he did give me a lot of, advice too, but talking to my mom about this, I remember we had a conversation years ago when I had done my first film, Blue Line Station, and I had this idea that I had already made it because I made a film with an iPhone and it was getting all this attention. But it was also not getting into any festivals. And I remember just like I was still living at home, and I remember my mom walked in and she was like, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, because maybe I'm not really meant to do this. I made this film and nobody wants it." And she gave me an advice that I always go back to all the time, where she said, "Well, you can always go back to an office job and be miserable, or you can be miserable while trying to make another film." And I think that's really that's really what really connected with me, that there was no way that I could be in a position of power and privilege to make this film and say no. Right now we're getting ready to start shooting my new film literally next Monday. We're gonna embark for 10 days. So that by the time I land in San Antonio, I'll be wrapping my new film. And we talk about this back and forth, how this time the budget's it's way bigger, and I get to hire all these people and I get to create jobs. And that's really what fills me. The same way that it filled me when we did Lolita, that we were able to hire people and create jobs. Especially right now, you're in Orange County. People aren't working because the strikes it's having a long-term effect on people's jobs right now.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a combination of remembering that, my mother's advice, and remembering that I get to create jobs for people, remembering that I get to collaborate with my amazing producer, my husband, and everybody, my DP, who I adore. But at the end of the day, I get to create something that I'm going to be really proud about, because there's so many filmmakers out there that wish they could be doing this, and I hope they do get to make their films. But right now, I get to make them, and that's really ultimately what it comes down to, And it'd be stupid to turn it down,
Yeah. And the fact that you're an independent filmmaker that owns all your own IP. So like,
Yes, 100%.
and the people I use the most are Charles Band from Full Moon Features, how he's had this, 50 plus career. He owns everything, including the website and Puppet Master and Tracer and everything else he's done. Robert Rodriguez does the same thing. You're doing the same thing. So even though, it's not a $1 billion Marvel movie, whatever you put into it is yours, and you own the IP and you don't have to answer to anybody else. And I really see that's the way cinema is going yet again, because it's been this ebb and flow of big studio production, gritty indie films, big studio productions, gritty indie films. And I think we're back into that indie film storytelling section. So that I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. Me too. It's starting to feel like, and I didn't make films in the 90s, but I've seen films that were made in the 90s, and it almost feels like the formula from the 90s is coming back, because more people are taking risks and more people are making films. And yeah, it's happening. It's kind of what's going to happen in the next 10 years, because of all the streaming platforms we have and all this amount of money that's being used on all these big blockbusters. So I'm excited for that. I do want to grow. I do keep saying that every film. that I make. It's bigger than the last, and I look forward to one day being able to direct something blockbuster type, because I love cinema. I love cinema, and I see myself doing it one day.
Right. Having grown up in that 90s era, the only thing that I had a problem with the majority of 90s indie films is that they all cut to black without any resolution. Not all of them, but quite a few of them. And it drove me
That was
nuts.
the
And I
thing.
was like, this is garbage. This pisses me off.
That was a thing back then. Yeah, I sometimes we would watch movies and I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it always drove me nuts. I was like, really? No resolution? Like there's zero resolution in this film? Like the last eight? Come on. Yeah. But what you've done with Lolita and the story that you're telling and you're doing it your way, I'm so proud of you and I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
And we're finally going to get to hang out in San Antonio. What are you looking forward to? Adam's always been great. This is the 35th or excuse me, 31st anniversary of San Antonio Film Festival. It's just keeps getting bigger and more exciting. What's it like going to a festival for you and especially you being Hispanic and Adam being, Hispanic as well, and it's a film festival created by a Mexican American, and you being Mexican yourself, and being able to work. It's not a Latino film festival, but it's a film festival that was created by a Latino.
No, I'm excited to share his first experience because this is his first festival ever. This is his first film festival ever. Well, we had a premiere for our series last year in September at a festival, but this is like I keep telling him film festivals are a complete different thing. They're so much fun. The one thing that I love doing whenever I go to a festival, I like to request to meet all the interns. I like meeting all the interns and and thanking them for all the work they do. In terms of film. And then just I want to give Adam a huge hug because I haven't seen him in years. And but the main thing again is to have my husband and my producer experience a film festival before because here's the thing. I haven't mentioned this, but my producer comes from producing big budgeted films with Eugenio Derbez and a bunch of other Mexican stars. So he's taken a chance to do, and he's like, I've never done it. I've never done film festivals in my life. He's like, and I'm like, lucky you, you've never had to, right? But I'm excited for him and for Alexis to experience this because also San Antonio is a pretty big festival. So
Right.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. And this is your very first film festival ever, Alexis.
It is.
All right. So you got to take them to the Riverwalk. The Alamo's
Yes.
right there. Like they're all within walking distance of the festival itself. And then with Adam and everybody that works for him, everybody's so welcoming and inviting that you're going to get spoiled with how well everybody treats you. So, don't expect it to always be this great, but everyone in San Antonio always treats you very well.
Yeah, the last time I was there, we ended up at a party that ended like at 4 in the morning, but we were just all hanging out talking about movies and
Yeah.
stuff. And it was great. I mean, again, I love that he has all these events throughout the festival. So I'm excited for them to also enjoy that because it's almost it's a one in a lifetime experience. I always tell people you're first, you have to enjoy it because you'll never get your first back.
Right. And we're looking forward to having a great time. July 27th is when it premieres in San Antonio. Like I said, this is not a lighthearted comedy. This is a very heavy story. What message, because everyone gets something different from the story, when they do it. You had your core idea that was yours, and it was your baby that you gave birth to, and now it's going to belong to the world, and everyone's going to see it differently than how you initially had planned. But if there's one lesson or one part of the story that you would like them to focus on, what would it be for Lolita?
He's asking you.
I know, but
It's for both of you. Don't throw each other under the bus.
That's a loaded question. I guess just like go along with Jesús on the ride and the journey because it is a journey, literally from beginning to end. And with an open mind, open heart.
I love it. What about you, Jorge?
I would just want people to take away from this that it's important to love. It's important to have some type of love in you to also accept people for who they are. Just because a lot of, especially now, I won't get so much into it, but we're so divided right now because of the amount of hate that's being promoted everywhere. And I just want people to, if anything, if I could have them take a message away from this, to learn how to love each other, but also use that self-love to love others despite their differences. Because Jesus is very different from everyone. And I feel like in a place like Texas, Jesus would never survive. Like Jesus would just never make it, you know?
Right.
It was just, it was just, yeah. So I'm excited to see how the audience in Texas reacts to this. Whether good or bad, I'm really proud of this project. I think we've made something amazing. And I can't wait. I can't wait to just be back and have a drink with everyone and celebrate this amazing journey.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to
And I
seeing
hope
you
you
guys
get
face to face in Texas. So we're gonna have fun when we get there. July 27th, San Antonio Film Festival. Tickets are available. Where can we find the two of you on social media if we want to connect with you? And where can we find the film on social media as well?
Go.
Facebook, Alexis Vazquez, and on Instagram, I am Alexis Vazquez.
And you can find me on all my social medias at official Xolalpa. And I'm, just good luck. You can find it. You can type it however you want. It'll come up. Jorge Xolalpa, official Xolalpa.
Jorge,
And
Alexis,
then
thank you.
Lolita is on Instagram.
Oh,
You
yeah.
could follow along Lolita the movie
Yes.
at Lolita the movie on Instagram.
Yeah.
We're posting everything that we can.
Jorge, I'm gonna put a challenge to you after Lolita, though. Well, I don't know what the film that you're filming for 10 days is, but this is a challenge. Make a comedy. Make me laugh one time, man.
Ooh, do you want to hear what the film is about? Because I'll tell you right now.
It's definitely not a
It's definitely not a comedy.
And I know it's not a comedy. I know your work.
Yeah, I know. It's actually it's quite interesting because again, I also wrote that about 4 years ago. And I didn't know that I was gonna be making this movie around the time where this is happening. So it's about a woman who gets dragged out of her car and deported in front of her child. So it's a thriller. It's an immigration thriller that I almost backed out of because of what's happening. But it's a very important subject matter that I'm not backing out. I've been mentally preparing because it's a tough subject, but it's definitely not a comedy. I will definitely do a comedy though,
Right.
one day in my career.
One day. That's all we're hoping for. One day. No. But gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to see you face to face. We're going to hang out in San Antonio Film Festival. July 27th is when Lolita premieres. It's always fun catching up, and I can't wait to see the audience reaction when they get to see the film as well.
Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having us.